Hi, everybody. So many of you asked about my big board ironing board that I use not only for ironing, but also for quilting. It's actually one of my very favorite machine quilting tools that I am going to do a tutorial for you today. I'm going to show you what this looks like on the back as well as the front, and then I'm going to do a step-by-step tutorial with one of the other pieces. But first, I'm going to pause and have John help me flip this over. Now, this is what the bottom of my big board looks like. Now, my friend Ginger Hoop's husband, Jim, made this for me, over 20 years ago. And he put this bit on the bottom so that I could actually put it on top of an ironing board. And I have used it that way. But I got to tell you, I have been using this on my table or on top of shelving like the calyx units, even more often than using it on top of an ironing board. So you don't actually have to have this part. But this thing has held up like a champ. It is absolutely awesome. Let me show you just really quickly a couple of the ways I use it, and then I'll do the demo. Now, this is the pose that a lot of you saw in the Machine Quilting Made Easier video, where I was using this board. So I have it perpendicular to my table so that it's creating an L shape. And it's nice and heavy, so it's quite stable. This allows me to put my quilt on top of the board. And this is also why I have this slick silver heat-resistant covering on this board, because it allows my quilt to slide freely. Whereas if it was fabric, it would, the friction, it wouldn't move as well. But this allows me, if I'm free motion quilting, to just do my little thing without pulling the whole weight of the quilt. And it also allows me when I'm binding, I love to use it when I'm binding, because it allows me to work on the edge of the quilt that I need to work on without having the whole bulk of the quilt on me, over my shoulder, or hanging on the floor. I can just rearrange the folds over here and maneuver it around. Same thing goes for a walking foot. I might have this edge folded if I was using my walking foot. This edge might be folded inside the machine. Then I'd have the rest of it all over here. So again, I am not struggling with the weight of the quilt. It's being supported on this side. All right, now because the board is 60 inches long by about 22, 23 inches, it is awesome when I'm pressing a quilt top, when I'm pressing my rows, sashing, binding, anything that's big and long, yardage, it is awesome. And I can move it around wherever I need it. Fantastic. But it's going to be too awkward to try to do a demo with this on camera. So I'm going to show you how it's done on a smaller piece. Here we are. I have everything laid out, and I'm just going to take you through everything that I've got here. This is going to be the fabric that's on the front of my ironing board. It's actually a nice batik fabric. I'm doing one small one with the batik, and I'm also doing one that's covered with the, I think it's called Thermoflex heat-resistant fabric. So I'm going to have one of each. I just like this because it's pretty. And then I have 2 layers of cotton batting. Now this is 100% cotton batting, needle punched. Now it's only 1/16 of an inch in loft, so that's why I'm using 2 layers. If your cotton batting is a little thicker than mine, you might be able to just use 1 layer instead of 2. And I've cut the batting 2 inches bigger and my fabric 4 inches bigger. That is not a rule. That's just what I did because I want to be able to wrap this around and turn to get a finished edge. So that's why I did those measurements. Okay. A couple other things. I'm using a 1/2 inch thick plywood, and that works out really well. We bought a piece of 2-foot by 4-foot plywood. It was really reasonable. And then I'm able to get 3 boards out of that, 2 that are this size and 1 that's a little smaller. I'm using an electric stapler. If you're using a manual stapler, you probably are going to want a hammer. to be able to hammer the staples the rest of the way in. And I don't know if I'm going to need these or not, but I do have some felt strips prepared so that if it looks like the staples on the finished board might scratch my table, I can use some tacky glue and cover them. So that is all the materials. We're ready to go. One other thing I wanted to mention is that some folks like to cover their boards with aluminum foil. All right, let's look at our batting. Now I pressed, you can't see it because the board is on top, but I went ahead and I pressed with a hot iron my batting to get any wrinkles or folds out so it's nice and flat. And now I'm just going to use this little ruler and I'm putting the point next to the corner of the board. And I've just marked that. You can see I've marked it here and I've marked it the other corners. And then I'm just going to come in and trim that out. And this is going to reduce the bulk and make it easier when we wrap the batting around the board. Okay, I'll do that next. Now I've trimmed out all 4 corners, and you don't have to be exact on these. It's pretty forgiving. Okay. And I'm going to start wrapping. When you wrap, you just want to make sure you're bringing it straight over and keep your fingers out of the way. Just like that. And I need to stop and put some more staples in. Since I had to refill this, I went ahead and did both of the long sides. And now I'm going to turn it and we're going to dress the corners. Now with the corners, because we removed that bulk, we can just pull it straight up and over, and that will be fine. And I'm gonna, on my long board, I start in the center and work towards the edges. On this one, I'm starting at the corners and work in, which is a little dangerous because you might end up with bulk in the middle. So generally, start in the middle, work towards the ends is probably going to be a little safer. On this board, it was fine. But here we go. Just pull that up and over, up and over. Just make sure that you're not putting a staple in on top of another staple. These look pretty good. That one's a little loose. I'm going to put one next to it. Now we've got it turned over. We can see it's nice and smooth and ready for the next layer. Okay, we're ready to bring the fabric over. And I noticed that this is not perfectly centered. And you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to fold over enough to make sure that I am going to cover the batting, just because I like the way that that looks. All right. I'm going to come almost to the corner. All right. Actually, equal. There we go. And we'll do it in the other direction. I'm just folding over enough of a edge to cover that. I might give this a pound. It's sticking up just a little bit, but I'm not going to do that to you on camera. So I've got both long sides stapled now. And I did go ahead and use a hammer to pound some of these in that looked like they were in all the way. And now I'm ready to do the first short end. Now I'm just going to treat it basically like a package or a present. I'm going to push that down and fold that over. Okay, now when I bring it up, okay, that's going to work. All right. So let's do, I'm gauging how much I need. to do that. And I am going to go ahead and start on the corner here, even though on the big board I did the centers first. Okay, so there's one corner. Let's do the other one. So again, I'm going to kind of mash that down, fold that in like a gift, and then I'm folding under just a little bit of a seam allowance, so to speak. And you don't have to do that if you have a fabric that's not going to fray. Let me get my hand out of there. Okay, so there's one short side, and now I'm going to do the other one. And there we are. Both short sides are now stapled, and I did go through and hammer them again just to make sure that they were completely flush. And you know what? I don't think I'm going to need these felt strips to cover the edge. You could just use some tacky glue and cover the staples like that, but I don't think I need to because my fabric goes past the batting. It's actually puffier here. And so the staples are actually not going to touch my table. I think we're going to be just fine. Let's turn this over and take a look. Here is my new pressing board. Doesn't it look nice? It's perfectly smooth, nice and taut, and ready to go. I am really, really pleased with it. Now I'm ready to do the other one. Here we go. I've got my second small board covered. Now this might look like a wrinkle or crease, but it's not. It's just a mark in the fabric. Nice and smooth and taut, ready to use. The main reason that I wanted one of my boards covered with the silver reflective fabric is so that I could use it with my wool mat when I do demos. The wool mats get very hot underneath. They conduct heat. That's why they're so great for pressing, because it kind of presses the back side at the same time as the front. But that means it also can transfer the heat to your work surface and damage your table or your mat. So I always have something underneath. Some wool mats are worse than others, and it may have something to do with whether or not they're actually 100% wool, but they can wick moisture through to the back and to your work surface. And so this is also going to protect my table. All right, easy peasy. And there we have it. Here's my set of newly covered boards. And in case I forgot to mention it earlier, the smaller ones I made 24 by 17 inches. So it fits my wool mat. You can make them smaller or larger, any size that you like. I like to keep the small one right next to me when I'm sewing if I need to just quickly press a seam, especially if I'm working on something that's fairly complex and I need to do a lot of pressing. I love the big one when I'm doing long seams or yardage. In particular, I also love it for my machine quilting because the quilt just slides and it's supported on the side so that I don't have to have all that weight. So thank you to everybody who requested this tutorial. And please, if you have questions or tips, share them in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm working on a new video series where I'm answering your questions and sharing tips that you all have submitted. And if you'd like some more free quilting information, check out my channel. There's lots of free information there. Thanks so much, and happy quilting.